Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show this Thursday, the 8th of July, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. You know, this whole thing ends, and it ends in one way, guys. What you're seeing is more and more pressure coming on the people all the time. Food prices go up. That adds pressure to the people. Not the one percenters out there who have all the money. Food doesn't represent almost nil of their budget. But you know, you guys been going to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store a couple times now. And now that I'm getting out and getting around, I actually go into the grocery store. I was getting it delivered. You know, I'd put it in an order. I'd go down to the grocery store, and with my mask on, they'd put it all in my trunk. So I wasn't paying so much attention to the prices, actual prices. Going through the grocery store now. I'm getting out there and going to the grocery store and taking a look at the actual prices of the groceries. And what I'm seeing is, in 1 year, grocery prices have gone up by about 30 to 40% across the board. That's what I'm seeing. This is pressure on the people. Rents are going up. You know? And utility bills are going up. And all this is going to continue. This is not transitory. It's going to keep putting more and more pressure on the people. It's going to be harder and harder, especially as they keep playing this stupid game. You know what the game I'm talking about is? What they're doing is, it's a deflationary, inflationary cycle. They pump the markets up with cheap liquidity. Then they drain the liquidity out. This is the game. And then the markets fall off again. And then they get a big crisis that they manufactured themselves. Big market crash or whatever, or correction. And then they come in with more cheap, easy money. And so now we're it's like the old game they used to play where stop and go game. You know, Simon Says, you take 2 steps forward, take 1 step back, and so on. This is the game that they're playing. But ultimately, it ends in inflation. And this inflation, at times, is stagflation. Because when they drain the money out of this, so they keep playing this game. But it's not a game for us, the people. It's a squeeze. And for the masses of the people out there, and most of them don't have any savings or anything, and they owe money on their credit cards and everything else, and they see these food prices, and so they have to make simpler choices in the grocery store. They have to leave that cut of meat. Can't have it anymore. Now you got to have spaghetti. That's all you're going to get, spaghetti. You know? Because you can't afford anything. And the people start to get agitated. So this all ends, where I'm going to tell you guys where this is going to end, is as the people get squeezed more and more and more, they start to feel discontented. It's only natural. After all, they look and they see that these billionaires are gaining like crazy. They're getting richer and richer and richer. And meanwhile, we can't feed our kids the proper kinds of food. We can't afford vitamin pills anymore. Jimmy's not going to get his vitamins anymore. We can't afford it. And the people start to get more and more agitated. Well, you know, this squeeze is going to continue. And it's going to get worse. And so it ends in one direction only. Where the people are gathered together the areas where you have the highest concentrations of people, is where you're going to have the most problems arise. And we also see another problem out there coming in at the exact same time. The people are getting squeezed, they're getting more and more agitated, and the power grid is getting weaker and weaker, less resistant to any little thing that can shut the power grid down. Now, am I the only one here? Or do you guys see a problem here? an enormous problem of the power grid possibly going down, chaos breaking out amongst the agitated people, and them that's not able to get it back on in areas. Not just, I'm not talking about the whole country, the grid going down the whole country. I'm talking about an area going down, civil unrest breaking out in that area, and it being massively hard for them to get the power restored to that area, or only maybe partially restored, and brownouts and all this sort of thing. This is what they went through in Venezuela. And this is what hyperinflation does. But it's also what stagflation can do. The exact same thing. And this is more like what we're going through. We're more like what we're going through right now is more like stagflation than hyperinflation itself. But the squeeze is on. It's going to get worse and worse. This is a guarantee. Because they don't have any real solutions for the problems that they created. We're not going to blame these problems on ourselves. We're going to blame them on the political class, because they're the ones who made these laws and put everything in place and decided to do it this way. Not us. You know what we wanted? We just wanted to do our job, obey the law, and be good citizens. That's all we wanted. And that's still all we want. That's all we want. We don't want to necessarily be have a house in the Hamptons. We just want to have our house wherever we have it, and we want to be able to bring up our kids in safety and have food on the table and do our job. Get up in the morning, read the paper or whatever real quick, get our coffee and whatever, and head out to work. That's what we wanted to do. But, they got different plans. You know, they got this big plan where you're not going to own anything and you're going to be happy. I don't see how you're going to be happy not having anything. What, are you going to be sitting on the street corner covered with an old blanket, freezing your butt off on the hard concrete, and we're supposed to be happy? I don't get that. No, we just want, it's very simple. I'll lay it out very simply what we want. We want to have our homes, we want to raise our kids, we want to work at our job diligently, and we want to be good citizens. But the people who are managing us are making this almost impossible for us now. It's just as simple as that. So whose fault is it? It's not our fault. We know what we want. We've always known what we want. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get into the markets and let's take a look at what's going on. Now that I have my little rant. Anyway, let's start the charts right here. Take a look. We're seeing this manipulation. See, this is part of it all. We don't want them to manipulate the price of gold and silver anymore. And whatever these Basel III rules, yeah, that's good. Help to get rid of the manipulation. But we don't want that anymore. We don't want to have the gold price manipulated. We want fair market value. We want gold to be priced according to the real gold. In other words, if you're going to do a trade of gold, don't go trading some big giant heap of papers on a desk that says gold on each paper. Trade the real gold. Settle the gold trade in real gold, not paper. See, they're always scheming. This is the problem. They're crooked and scheming instead of doing things the way they should be doing things. Here we go. $25.85 for silver today. It's down 25 cents. Why should silver be down 25 cents when it's in short supply? This shows you their schemes behind the scenes. They're manipulating things behind the scenes. They shouldn't be. You should never be able to manipulate the markets. Markets should be free markets, not be able to manipulate them. So that's what we're seeing with silver today, $25.85. Let's take a look at gold. Gold is $17.96. It's down $6.90 today. So it's under $1,800. Now, I must applaud the Basel III rules because it is going to put pressure on these manipulators. It's going to put a 15% pressure on them so that their money that they've manipulated with the paper assets, if they're holding unallocated gold positions, in other words, they don't have the real assets to back up their position, they're going to have a 15% cut. In other words, that position is only going to be worth 85 cents on the dollar. So it's going to make it less likely that they're going to want to hold those positions. And they got until the end of the year to clear those positions out. So Basel III, I applaud it because it is starting to clean up the market. But this market is filthy dirty. It's going to need one heck of a lot of cleaning. Let's move on to cryptos today. 1369 for cryptos. So cryptos have fell off a little bit with the markets, which is exactly what I would expect. 32,813 for Bitcoin today. Take a look at the Dow. It's down 318 points. Now let's talk about some more manipulation. The Fed wants to prove their point that inflation is transitory. So what are they doing? They got this repo facility opened up, and they're draining liquidity out of the banking system. They drained out 900 and something billion, almost $1 trillion out, right? Now they've backed off the pedal a little bit now. It's back down to around 800 billion, you know? And maybe they could see that they were going to cause a market crash, because when you take all that liquidity or all that money, picture piles of cash, guys, picture piles of cash that the banks have, and they can go out and they can do anything they want with that cash. They can make loans. They could take that cash and go out and gamble in the stock market. They can do things with that cash. All of a sudden, they open up the reverse repo facility and they say, okay, we're going to park. You can park your cash with us, and we will give you collateral in return. So the bank said, okay, we'll park the cash for you. And so now they've parked $800 billion with the reverse repo. That money's not going nowhere. The money they parked there. But now the banks don't have that money to play around with. You know? It's parked with the Fed. And so right now it's 800 billion that they've parked, roughly, more or less 800 billion. And that's going to have an effect on speculation in the markets. It's going to have an effect upon speculation in things like Bitcoin and gold and silver and all these things. If they did too much of it, the Fed, it would burst the bubble. But that's maybe why they backed off. They had it up to, think, 960 billion, and now it's back down to 800 billion. So they're backing off the pedal a little bit. Maybe they realize that, hey, you know, we we could cause a crisis just by the reverse. But they didn't want inflation out there. They're playing with games. They're playing games, guys. That's all they're doing right now. You know, they're trying to prove a point that the inflation is transitory, so they're going to withdraw the liquidity and show you guys it's transitory because of their power, their almighty power that they have. I'm telling you, they are extraordinarily powerful. They can make things happen. And, you know, they're scared of too much inflation, but then again, they're even more scared of deflation. And they're caught in a trap right now that they can't get out of. And this whole crisis is only going to end in one direction. It's just making the people more and more mad. So you can guess where it's going to end, you know, ultimately, because people just cannot make their pay last until the end of the month anymore. And they're working hard. It's just the way the system is set up. It's set up to rob you blind and make them rich. And it's going to get worse and worse until it becomes more and more noticeable, ultimately. Let's take a look now at crude oil. 72.27 today for crude oil. It's up 7 cents. It's had a couple down days, but now today it's bouncing back. Let's take a look now at the MOVE Index. MOVE Index is bouncing upwards. This is the one that really gets me. We're really getting some big movements in these bond yields over the last number of days. The U.S. 10 years under 1.3%. Today it's at 1.29, and it's down 2.7 basis points. That's a lot of movement, and you got to really watch that 10-year. When that 10-year goes over 1.3, that should be rocket fuel for gold. What's going on? We got a fallen dollar today. We got a yield that's 10 years under 2.3%. And gold's just sitting there? I don't get that. This should be something that's going to pump some energy into the gold market. Maybe it's a delayed reaction. I don't know. Maybe because I'm going to tell you, the big nemesis of gold is these treasury yields. And if the yields are low, like they are, then gold becomes more attractive. But right now, it's not. Let's take a look now at the U.S. dollar index. 92.41. So we got a fallen dollar today. It's fell 1/4 penny. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. I'm going to tell you what, I'm just disgusted by the way they run things. You know, we could have a vibrant economy. We could have people that where only one person in your family has to work, and you're able to save money every month. We could have a world like that if things were managed properly. But we've got a bunch of people in there who don't care. They just want to serve out their time in office, and they just want to get rich and famous and powerful or whatever, you know, and they don't care about what's happening with the people. What's happening on the ground level with the people, what they're having to go through, their suffering. And how they don't even have money for medication and stuff, and what they eat. They have to end up eating foods that's going to make them fat, you know, and it's not a good kind of fat. It's a kind of fat where their muscles all turn to jelly, and their body gets great big gobs of fat all over it because all they can eat is like things like pasta. It's the only thing they can afford. They have to go in and buy it on sale. You know what I mean? And where the rich people out there, they're the ones who are eating this lean steaks and things like that, and they're the ones who can afford things like fresh fruit and vegetables to maintain their health. Meanwhile, the vast majority of the population is having to wait for a sale on Prego spaghetti sauce before they can eat, you know, and Twinkies, because it's the only thing that they can afford. It's just sick and repulsive the way this society's being run. From the top down, it's sick and repulsive. If it was managed correctly, I'm telling you, the world could be a rosy place. Our infrastructure could be all repaired. For the amount of money that they've borrowed, they have quite literally $200 trillion worth of mismanaged money. If that money had been borrowed to put into things, what would infrastructure really cost if they didn't have all these boondoggles? Do you know what I'm talking about with boondoggles? I'm talking about the politicians. What they'll do is, if they're going to repair a bridge, for instance, they'll have people put in tenures or bids, the companies, construction companies and stuff. You know? And what they'll do is they'll do a payoff thing where the guy that gets the bid, you know, he's a buddy of theirs. And they don't care what the bid is. They don't care if other guys, they don't care if they're charging like $5 million for a day's work. What they'll do is set up a bunch of cones and make it look like it takes 3 months. While they're all sitting around under the bridge having a coffee or whatever, pretending like they're working. One guy there sitting on the end of his shovel, you know, cones set up everywhere. And then we have to go down the highway and there's a big traffic blockage, and we're burning fuel. It's like maybe 1,000 trucks sitting there burning fuel, wasting their time in the summer heat, while there's a few cones set up on the bridge so that they can make it look like they're taking more time than when they really are. Maybe they priced it at $1 million to fix the bridge, and it's only like 4 hours work. It's all this crookedness goes all through the system. So that now at this point we can't get nothing done. It's a mess. To get it all straightened out again, I don't know what it would take. But ultimately, it's getting worse, so it's going to have to be straightened out at some point so that everything starts to run properly again. Oh, and the medical system. I'm not even going to go there because I'd talk about 2 hours right now about how corrupt the medical system is. You know, when the hospital might charge you $30 for a cotton swab. And they got everything itemized. What a bunch of crooks, because what they're doing is the worst vile thing that there ever was is taking advantage of sick people. Oh my goodness. Awful, awful, awful. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.